Good evening and welcome to the Monday night edition of The People Show with Mark Wallace and Charles Thomas here on IntellectualRadio.com. And we are on YouTube and Facebook Live. Our telephone number here is 223-8953. That's 708-223-8953. And we'll pick up your phone calls to join in the conversation with us over the next couple of hours.
Yeah, it's March, man, and you know that
March
means
Madness.
March Madness. They got the basketball tournament going on. I don't know a whole lot about
Neither do I.
College basketball because they change. You know, the best players go one and done,
Mm-hmm.
so you really don't develop any connection with the teams. But I mean, a lot of people love this, and they're going to be betting on these pools and such. And I've been invited to get involved in a couple of those. I don't know enough about it.
I don't know anything about it. I couldn't tell you about who's who in basketball, in college basketball, really, and I'm becoming less informed about the NBA. But speaking of the college basketball, there's a tournament that's in Chicago at the United Center.
Yeah, I think there's a Big Ten tournament.
Is that the Big Ten tournament?
And who wins the Big Ten tournament automatically goes to the NCAA tournament. That doesn't mean that other Big Ten teams don't go, but if you do win that tournament, that means you get an automatic bid, as they put it. And, you know, I think Purdue, which was the number one team in the country during this season, I think they are one of the favorites to reach the Final Four. I think they won the Big Ten tournament. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I
couldn't correct you at all.
Hey, audience out there, you know, if you want to join this conversation, we're at 708-223-8953. This is the People Show on Intellectual Radio. I look forward to it, man. On Monday night, coming in here and, you know, and chopping it up with my good friend, Mark Wallace. And so what's new, man?
What's new? It's a new day.
You know, we were talking about the mayor's race prior to.
Well, before we go into the mayor's race, there's something that I want to celebrate. The Simeon coach, Robert Smith, who is retiring this year. I did not know he has 9 state championships, but more important than that, he's got 6 players that are playing in the NBA today.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's another high school coach that has that kind of record.
You know, there are high school coaches that coach for these academies, you know, these basketball mills. I can't remember the name. One is Oak something or the other. Anyway, these are places that the best kids go to. They recruit them. And they go there. They probably have more. But when you talk about a public school, he's probably
he develops them.
Right? Yeah, he develops them, and they go there to play.
They don't have a large, you know, economic base to do that. So
but those aren't all neighborhood kids, though. Keep in mind. I mean, they'll go to Simeon from anywhere in the city because there is kind of a quasi recruiting situation that goes on in Chicago where these schools get the best players they can find.
Right.
Even Whitney Young. I mean, they've had great players come out of Whitney Young.
Yeah,
professional players.
I forget the general. He's playing in the league now. I forget his name.
Yeah, there was this kid Okafor. I don't know if he's still in the league. There was the other kid. I can't remember his name.
Right.
There's Lucas Williamson III. I mean, he played at Loyola. Really brought their program back. I think he's playing in the G League now. They have some great players. I think now Jabari Parker. He played at Simeon. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Jabari Parker. So
now where did Derrick Rose play?
Simeon.
Yeah,
he played at Simeon.
Man, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This guy has more players. I mean, he has more players playing at one time in the league than I think any other high school, certainly in Illinois. I don't know about the country, but that's a major accomplishment. I reached out to him to bring him on our podcast to talk about his what he plans for going forward. I don't know if he has any plans to go into the college ranking, or if he's just going to retire and maybe develop players. But I'd like to know what his plans are.
Yeah, well, that's clearly he has a connection with young people.
Yeah,
and I tell you, we really need that right now. Have you seen any of that video of? There's this controversy surrounding this player in Memphis. His name is Ja Morant.
Yes.
Yeah, you're familiar with that controversy,
yes,
and the image that he is projecting to the league, which is troubling to the league because he's coming across, a little thuggish, if you will.
With that episode that he did in the club.
Well, that in the club and some of the other stuff that's been going on surrounding him. Apparently, he got into some fights during a pickup game and something and hit some, but just stuff that really is kind of normal on the street, but not in a mass media sense. That do we want to see that from young people? He's sort of the antithesis of what Michael Jordan or Julius Erving before him was in terms of being a superstar. And Magic Johnson, I mean, all of them. I mean, they kept an image up, and he wants to do the gangster thing. He wants to wear the hoodie.
Somebody who is not, according to records or the news, is that he's not even a gangster.
Well,
he wasn't even that. But he was, according to reports, that he was the rising star that the NBA was looking towards.
He's a great player. He's phenomenal.
Rising star. But I think that that has gone down the tubes.
Well, that's gone down. But his dad, and that's a different thing for the NBA anyway, because usually it's his mom, it's their mama. But his dad is very close to him. But his dad has gotten into some situations at the games where his dad has, gotten into physical fisticuffs with people on the floor in the Memphis games. And you go, whoa, what's up with Dad? And, Dad has been seen on the sidelines, and, he's been, he
like the soccer moms and dads.
This guy is actually, he gives you I don't know, man. He wears his pants low. Did that explain things for you?
Yeah.
Anyway.
I've watched this John Morant. I've only seen him play a few times in the playoffs, and that's how I learned about him a couple of years ago or a year ago, whenever it was. And but from all reports that he was the one that the NBA was one of those ones that the NBA was looking to carry that forward as being a star in the NBA, because he is a great player. Obviously, he's got a lot of talents, but I think that is gone. I think that he is, that is gone.
He can't fix it. You don't think?
No. I don't think that he can. I don't think that he can fix the whole image thing for the NBA. He can fix, and he's going to have to put in a lot of work. Because what he did for me, I don't care about the NBA. For me, I care about what that represents to other young kids who look up to them.
Absolutely.
So that's what I care about. So when I see him do the work to repair that, then he becomes a superstar for me in that level. I don't care about the superstardom of the NBA. I care about how he impacts the lives of other people who look to them.
And he has an impact. I mean, because he is a phenomenal basketball player. And a lot of the young people, the young kids, they emulate him on the court. And when they see him off the court, do they want to mimic that as well? Mm-hmm. And that is the troubling part of this entire episode.
There is a group of black men, I forget his name, but they have this organization that they actually have an orientation for the players when they reach the professional level, that they take them through of the things to do and the things not to do. And unfortunately, some of these guys, I think that they think that they can just live normal lives as, some, innocuous person lives. And that's just not the reality anymore. You have, whether you want to or not, you have a responsibility because you are a role model. Whether you want to or not, when you reach a certain status of attention, there are a lot of people who are watching you, and they start to doing the things that you do based on your elevation. So that's the reality, and you have to own that responsibility.
March Madness, but this is also, I think, is it International or National Women's Month?
This is Women's History Month. I think this is International Women's Week.
Something like that.
I get a little bit confused with, how that, I think it's International Women's Week.
Something like that. But
and
I know
that it's Women's History's Month.
At the White House last week, the First Lady and the Secretary of State handed out awards to several women, and the Woman of Courage for 2023 is a trans woman. Mm-hmm. She was born a biological male. Am I speaking right? I hope I'm not insulting anybody. But she was named the Woman of Courage. And people are going, well, here's a man. Some people were saying this is a man who has moved into becoming the Woman of Courage. And apparently this person is from Argentina, and she, had to go through a whole lot because she's transitioned. Mm-hmm. And what sign of the times? Or
no, I think it's just a sign of this being openly accepted, where people don't have to hide behind a veil. I think that's what it is. I think we're just seeing that people are becoming more comfortable, and the rest of the world is allowing for people to be whoever they.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. No. We are doing things in the United States culturally that are not playing in the rest of the world. They just aren't. I mean, we're doing things culturally here that if you take this situation and take it to Russia.
Didn't you say this person was from Argentina?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, she's from Argentina. But I mean, but she was honored here in the United States. Uh-huh. She's having trouble in Argentina, apparently. But in the United States, Dr. Jill Biden, she invited her to the White House to be awarded as the International Woman of Courage. But I think culturally, the United States is doing some things here that you have to wonder, how do they play overseas, in China, for instance, or in Russia, or in Saudi Arabia, or in Iran. Wow. I mean, how do they play there? And I think that we have to understand that we're at the vanguard of a movement that isn't necessarily in tune with the rest of the world.
Well, there are different things, different situations when you start talking about places like Iran and the way that they treat women over there.
Exactly.
And that sort of thing.
But this isn't a biological woman. This is a trans woman.
But I'm only talking about how people are treated in different parts of the world. When you started talking about when things are happening in the United States and that are not happening in other places, but there are things that are happening in other places that are not.
That will not happen here, and God willing, they'll never happen.
Right.
But I think the rest of the world, what we do culturally and the things that we talk about, I don't know that the rest of the world, number one, really cares about those. There aren't major issues. We have what they call first world issues. Like that, I mean, in countries where people are trying to find enough food to eat or a roof over their head, they aren't they aren't consumed by this whole notion of what's your pronoun and the whole transgender situation. I mean, we have it.
Well,
It is a first world problem here in the United States.
I guess I don't really care.
You do? You don't?
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't, because it doesn't impact my life, and it doesn't, so I
Mm-hmm.
really don't care about what somebody wants to do with themselves. Whatever they want to do, let them, as far as I'm concerned. I'm really more concerned about making sure that people can get some food to eat here, and making sure that we're doing all that we can to level the playing field. But, in terms of people making personal decisions for their lives, I just don't have an opinion.
Yeah.
None of my
Apparently,
business.
the president, the first family does, and Jill Biden put that on display last week at that event at the White House. But closer to home, man,
Mhm.
what's going on with the campaign, man? I know that you're
People are working hard.
because
People
you're
are
working for
working hard.
Brandon, right?
Yes. Yeah. I'm working for the Brandon Johnson. I'm not working for the campaign. I'm working and hoping that he becomes the next mayor of the city of Chicago.
You're not working for the campaign.
I do not work for the
Oh,
campaign.
you're
I
not
don't get
paid
paid
for them. Oh, gotcha.
I'm not a consultant to the
Gotcha.
campaign. I give my opinion to Brandon. I send him text messages. He responds, to me. I talk to, a couple of people with his campaign. I don't have a direct position within the campaign.
Sure. Yeah.
But I'm working hard to do what I can as a citizen who supports that campaign to hopefully become successful at winning the race.
Did you watch the first debate, the
Yes.
one on Channel 5?
Yes,
What'd
I
you
did.
think?
Well, I was a little bit disappointed that there were not more concrete specifics. So I was a little bit disappointed with that. And I was a little bit disappointed with what I saw on both sides, that there were some areas of disrespect that
Between the candidates?
between the candidates that I think that was disappointing.
Really? I thought the questions that Marianne Ahern was asking, she wasn't giving them really enough time. They didn't need to go on forever, believe me, but I think the 30-second limit that they had,
Yeah,
it was
for
way
two
too
people
short.
is way.
Yeah,
now
you only
that
had two people. Yeah,
you got two people for an hour.
Yeah.
You can give a person, at least in my judgment, 2 minutes, minute and a half to because it takes you 2-3 minutes or so, 2-3 minutes to respond to that. I hope they do better on the next one that's coming up on ABC. I certainly hope that they do better.
Thursday
on that
night, I
one.
think
Yes.
it happens. Yeah, I didn't I didn't necessarily like that. I look at both these guys and I looked at all 9 people, man, and I wasn't excited by any of them. I said here and to you that I am a less than enthusiastic supporter of Paul Vallas. I will vote for him, but I'm not, I'm not head over heels about his candidacy. I think that I think Brandon's having some trouble. I think he's having some trouble. Now, this is from somebody who obviously, full disclosure, I'm going to vote for Vallas, but it seems like this CTU connection thing is getting some traction, and then there's I think the Democratic Party. There are regular Democrats who are concerned about the CTU taking over the 5th floor. I think that's another concern within the party. And lastly, I don't think that he's connecting with Black voters. Oh my gosh, sorry about that. I don't think he's connecting with Black voters the way I think his supporters or his campaign team would like. And I think the reason for that is that there's nothing new about that anymore. And the black elected officials who have been elected haven't produced anything. They appear to be more loyal to the Democrat Party than they are to their constituents. And I think people are beginning to realize that. And there just isn't that excitement level for Brandon yet. Now, maybe in these last 3 weeks, he can excite people. But right now, I just do not sense that excitement that we felt when Barack ran for the Senate the first time, or when Carol Moseley Braun ran for the Senate back in the 90s, or Barack's presidency, or even John Stroger's run for Cook County Board president back in the 90s. I just don't feel the excitement for Brandon among black people. And what do you think? I mean, is it coming? Do you sense something different?
Well, being that I move around to some of the events with Brandon, what is magical about Brandon is that people who don't know him, when he gets in front of people, he wins people over.
Mm-hmm.
He is a magnet for that. So I think, and that's what happened in, let's just call it the first run, right? Because you and I have, I don't know if we can say we predicted it, but we certainly talked heavily about he and Paul Vallas being the two runner-ups, right? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. So, and I saw that surge towards the end, right? And I think that a lot of people, most people didn't think that Brandon was going to be close to the being in the runoff. You and I talked more about that possibility than anybody else.
Really?
Right. So, and I told them that because towards the leading up to it, in the last week or so, 2 weeks, he just started to surge. And that was because when he got in front of people and he was able to connect with people, they connected with him. He is that kind of personality. He's that kind of personality. So I think that when I see him talking to groups that didn't really know him, they connect with him. I had a planning meeting, which was a very interesting planning meeting. I've never had one to have that many young people involved. And there were people from as far as south as Aldale Gardens to Hyde Park, and some from the west side. And we wanted to have breakout groups to hear from them. What is it, that they thought about the Brandon campaign, and what do they want to hear from Brandon? I was really more interested in what the young people wanted.
He brought Elizabeth Warren, the United States Senator from Massachusetts, who is a liberal scion, if you will. She's, I think she's the one that Trump called Pocahontas.
Mm-hmm.
She came in, and do you think that makes a difference? That if I don't consider myself in the progressive culture, but does that make a difference if she comes in and says Brandon Johnson is the right guy for the job to be mayor of Chicago?
For the people in that political persuasion that are that support her and like her, yeah, it does something for that group. Brandon has to win the black community. Brandon is going to win a certain amount of the white progressives because they're not going to go with Paul Vallas. And I was up today, all the way up north on Peterson, and Brandon Johnson signs were everywhere.
That's Peterson, as in that's northwest side or
North Chicago. No, that's North Chicago.
Straight north.
Yeah, straight north Chicago.
I mean, he did well up there during the first round.
So, but my point is that Brandon's work has got to be, or is not got to be, is in the black community. That's where his work is cut out for him from now until April the 4th. That's where his work is. If he does not get If he does not get 50% of the black vote,
50?
Paul Vallas becomes the mayor of
You
the
think
city
it's
of Chicago.
50%? You think that's all he needs is 50%? I think he needs
He's gotta
80% of the
he's
black
gotta get-
vote
well-
and a turnout
Well, let me
that
put it
is on the same.
The turnout has to be at least 50% of the black. I think I said it wrong. 50% of the black vote. He's got to win 80% of the black vote.
Right, but
Yeah.
50% has to turn out.
Yes,
There you go.
minimum.
But that's going to be that probably would be a better turnout than the rest of the city. Because they got 38. What was it? 38% during the first round.
32.
32% during the first round.
Look,
Man,
no, that's not true. I went through some numbers last night. That's just that number 30% was overall. In the black community, it was only 16%.
No, wait a minute. Hold it. Of registered voters or of the vote? If it's only 16% of registered voters,
16% of the black registered voters turned out.
That's terrible.
Okay.
But I think it was 32% of the overall
of the overall registered voters. 500,000 people turned out to vote. 500 plus, right? There's 1,580,000 registered voters in Chicago. A little more than 500,000 turned out.
So the
504,000.
32% turned out. That's terrible, man.
Yeah,
that's terrible.
So,
but see, that's what I'm saying. I don't sense that energy that we felt during past elections when black candidates were running for citywide or statewide office. We had that energy.
Well, you had more time too to build that energy. In this election, when you think about it, back then you had more time, fewer people, running in elections, and I think there are some. I think there is a fatigue. Now, you said this, and I've been talking about this a long time, and I like to recite it because it is important. We have 160 black people elected to positions of power in the state of Illinois. That does not exist anywhere else in the country.
Nowhere else. That's most in the country.
And we have within Chicago, Cook County, we have most of those people that are in positions like we have 22 state reps and 10 state senators, a Speaker of the House, an Attorney General, a Lieutenant Governor, a black mayor, black Cook County Board president in those areas. And then all those other ancillary
20
areas.
black mayors in the suburbs.
17.
We got a lot.
17 black mayors in
we
the
got a lot of
suburbs.
black people that were elected.
So the problem for the black electorate is that we have all these black people. And I've heard this from people who are on the Vallas side and the Brandon Johnson side. I've talked with T.O. Hardeman. I've talked with Muhammad, what's his name? Tyrone Muhammad. These are the two guys in the violence interrupter. Just a number of people on both sides. But it's universally is that all of us are frustrated with the fact that there has not been more delivered, and there should have been more delivered to the community universally, because we have all these black people in these positions and we have regressed in terms of equity. So there's that component that exists, and it's real. And I think that is contributing to the lack of energy.
Mm-hmm. One other thing I've noticed about this election cycle, the first round and now this runoff, where is the green team?
The green team?
The green team.
Who's the green team?
Irish politicians.
Oh, well, let me tell you. Let me tell you what I think.
What do you think?
I think that the head of the green team has been cut off. I think that Michael Madigan, Ed Burke, they've been decapitated.
And the Daily went to jail.
The Dailies, I think, they have been largely decapitated, which is why I just say that for Black people to really amass power, this is the greatest opportunity for them to do it.
But where are they going to get the power? I mean, I don't see.
The problem is that we don't have a sense of connectivity to do so.
Well, we don't, but I mean, I don't think that Brandon and his association with CTU is clear cut enough that we can trust totally that he is going to be a Black mayor as opposed to a CTU mayor.
Okay,
I think that is a huge question.
Let's talk about that. First of all, there are legal lines between unions and political offices.
In Illinois, they are blurry.
No, there are specific legal lines that you cannot do certain behavior. So if people on whatever side of the table that people are on, they want to use it as a weapon in their campaign for their candidate on both sides. Paul Vallas is tied to the FOP. So why isn't the same argument with the FOP and Paul Vallas as mayor of the fifth floor? It's the same thing.
Well, if you look at the, and I'm not self-promoting, but if you look at the documentary that we did called Local One with the Illinois Policy Institute, we did a very straightforward, just the facts, history of CTU. And CTU leaders made it quite clear that they were not just a union that was worried about teacher salaries and benefits. No, they were going to be the centerpiece or the force for reform and revolution in the city. Maybe revolution is a strong word, but reform in the city, progressive reform in the city. And members would say it very clearly that they take a socialist view of what should happen in the city. And people hear that. They wanted to do this. This is an end. And Brandon, I don't think, can really separate himself from that. And that's what a lot of people are afraid of. And that's why they aren't moving in that direction.
Okay.
And they're concerned about whether or not this really radical union is going to take over City Hall and the fifth floor. And they will basically
people can be rest assured that they are not. Okay?
Well, I mean, I can't be rest assured of anything.
You can be rest
why
assured
should I be?
not.
I want him to convince me, not you. I want him to convince
I don't think that
me.
he can.
And I haven't heard that yet.
I don't think that he can convince you or people who are on the other side. I don't think that it's possible. The man he stood up and said in the debate, if I am elected mayor, I will have no connection with the CTU. I will be the mayor of the city of Chicago. The CTU will not be the mayor of the city of Chicago. Brandon Johnson will be the mayor of the Chicago. I will not be collecting any salary or have any position in CTU
of course
at
not.
all. Okay. So I don't care if the people on the other side who want to use that as a weapon, they said to Brandon Johnson, I need you to stand on your head and to 30 degrees to the right and make that solemn oath. And if he did it, they will say, well, you're not quite there. So my point is that I just think it's a nonsensical thing that people are using because the CTU is not going to jeopardize their charter, which they would do if they are found to be trying to take over the fifth floor.
You are a lot more trusting of politicians than I am. I don't care if the guy's name is Brandon Johnson or give me Lindsey Graham.
No,
I mean,
I
don't.
process.
Just a politician says something, and automatically I become skeptical. And I think a lot of voters become skeptical when he says, "Oh, don't worry about that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to."
Are
do
you
that."
Are you
And then they turn
skeptical
around.
for Paul Vallas?
I told you I'm a less than
I know,
enthusiastic
but are you
supporter.
skeptical about Paul
Yes,
Vallas and the
yes.
FOP?
I'm skeptical
taking
about Paul
over
Vallas
the,
and some of the money that he took from some very
No, but that
conservative
aside,
donors.
but that aside.
No. And he's now
Yeah, but we're talking about
shifting
two different
gears.
things.
No, we are.
No, I'm talking purely about the FOP and the fifth floor.
What is the FOP? Seriously, the FOP, I don't think they've ever, as part of their creed, said they want to take over the city and make it and declare martial law. I don't think I've ever heard that.
Yeah,
I've never heard that.
I don't think that's the creed of the CTU
but I don't think
either.
I've ever heard that. I think
I've never heard that from the CTU.
I mean, Brandon was a paid organizer with CTU.
So
Paul Vallas was
what?
not paid a penny as an organizer or an official of the Fraternal Order of Police.
You don't
he
know
just
that.
took their endorsement. He took their endorsement because it helped him out at the beginning
Brandon
of his campaign.
Johnson is a school teacher who went from a school teacher to being a part of the Chicago Teachers Union.
Yes.
I don't know why that is some kind of boogeyman
because he's
or
a
something.
member.
So
of the
what?
union.
So what?
He's a member.
So what?
He's a dues-paying member. He gets a salary from the union.
Good.
So we're concerned as voters. Does this mean that CTU is going to come in and run the show?
No.
I mean,
I don't think that people are concerned so much about that. I don't think that people are so much as concerned. Okay, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I think that what has happened is that people are using this as a political weapon to drive fear into people for maybe not you, but there are a lot of people for Vallas that are doing that. However, there are a lot of reasons why the voters rejected Paul Vallas 3 times in Chicago and Illinois. And all of a sudden, he's become the great white hope for a man who says, I'm getting out of Illinois, but he is knee deep in Illinois politics.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, and he has in the past, which I think was pointed out during the Channel 5 debate, that he expressed some doubt about being a Democrat. And that he was, I think he said at that time he felt more in tune with Republican issues than he did with Democrats.
He said, I'm more of a Republican than I am a Democrat.
Back then, back as 2010. That's what he said.
Yeah.
He said, I'm more of a Republican right now than I am a Democrat. Man.
No, he said, I'm more of a Republican. Not right now. He said, I'm more of a Republican than a Democrat.
But he was speaking in 2010, and 4 years later, he was on the ticket with Pat Quinn as a Democratic candidate for lieutenant governor. So, I mean, he goes back and forth. And I think that's a
big problem.
That's a concern.
Yeah.
That's a concern.
Be who you are.
Be who you are.
Be who you are.
Be who you are. But I got to tell you, and we've gone through this before, and we're kind of early in the show but I mean, right now, I'm more in tune with Republican issues than I am with Democrat issues.
That's clear.
And that's national.
That's clear.
Yeah, that's clear. And I'm not ashamed of it. I have no regrets of it because there are certain issues that I can identify more with the conversation that's going on among the Republicans than I can with Democrats and the conversation that's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
But I would consider myself an independent voter who 99% of the time that I voted in my 72 years have voted for Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
I have.
So
I have voted for Democrats.
So you just started voting for Republicans?
In the recent years, yes. Okay. In recent years, when I see Democrats beginning to talk about some of the cultural issues, when I see Democrats beginning to play the race card every step of the way, everything's about race. And I find that abhorrent. I don't want to be part of that. I think this country has to come together at some point and be a country again. And I see the Democrats doing everything they can to divide us and divide the country to the point where we can't get anything done. Mm. And
And you don't see that happening with these people who call themselves Republicans?
Look, Republicans are not perfect.
No,
I'm saying
that wasn't
I
the
want
question.
to talk. Okay,
I know, but that wasn't the question.
I've said, what's the question?
Because you said one thing, and I'm asking you the same question that you were saying about Democrats, and I'm asking you, you don't see that about these people who call themselves Republicans within the political spectrum?
Here in Chicago or nationally?
No, nationally, because you said nationally.
I hear people on both sides that I agree with and people that I don't agree with on both sides. But I'm saying that right now. No,
I'm talking about the race issue. You brought up race.
The race issue. I mean, I saw the president just in the last couple of weeks. He said that there are people out there who want to hang, burn at the stake, and castrate Black people. He said that.
Yeah, well, there are.
I know, but why does a president of the United States play the race card
He's
like
not
that?
Playing the race card.
Come on, man. I don't worry about
he's not playing the race card.
Doing that to me. What is he doing? If he's not.
He's not playing the race card. He's telling us what he's telling us what he is telling us what is happening. Charles,
are being murdered
now
by
you're
other Black people.
You're conflating two things. We're talking about people who want to harm people because they are of
and where are they doing this? Where are they doing this? Where are they doing that? Tell me a place in the country where that is happening over and over again to the point where the president of the United States has to point it out that it's happening. I say he's manipulating Black people. He wants Black people to vote Democrat. So they constantly keep the race thing going so that you do. And I'm not going to fall for it anymore. I'm not going to have them call every Republican person a racist. That is nonsense.
Wait a
second. That is absolute nonsense.
Who has called every Republican person?
Who? He says that. Okay, he says
No. Who called every Republican person a racist? Name them.
It is the general tone of the conversation.
No, that's your president.
Opinion. Okay, that's my opinion. Fine, that's my opinion.
Because you stated it as though somebody is saying that every Republican person is a racist.
That Black people are in danger of being lynched, burned at the stake, and castrated. I said, what country are you talking about? He said that.
Okay, well, wait a second. There was a man who died in 2018. His name was John Burge. I
remember that.
And he used to, and there were just two men just recently, just announced today, that are getting a certificate of vindicating their conviction of this man who tortured them. Yeah. Hold on a second. Who tortured them because they were Black.
Okay.
And they served more than 30 years in prison for a murder that they did not commit. They were just one of many.
I know of many.
So please don't pretend that this is not happening.
It doesn't happen, but that happened in the 80s and 90s. Come on, man. We grow as a country. We've grown. And we have to celebrate that growth. We can't go around talking about what happened back then, what happened back then, and stay mad about it. What's the end game there? What's the end game, Mark? What's the end game?
We can't pretend.
What's the end game?
We can't pretend that hate is not out there.
Answer my question, because this is something I wonder about all the time.
The end game to what?
The end game to what the president said. Why is that? Why should the country be consumed with division and blaming this person and that person for this or that? And why can't we learn to accentuate the positive?
Yeah, well, why don't you go talk to those people that you said that you align with that are the most divisive
than Black people in any country in the world.
Yeah, well,
and we have to understand that at some point.
Yeah. And you want to compare, and you want to think that Black folks should tolerate in this country the racist systemic racism because some person in a third world country and some people in third world country are starving and having difficult times, that somehow that Black folks should just be fine with the way that Black folks have been mistreated in this country. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I'm saying that we've got white people telling Black people who or what is racist. That's what I.
No, he's
let
telling
me
other
finish,
white
Mark.
people.
I'll let you finish. White people are telling black people who's a racist, and generally speaking, it's their political opponent. They don't care about us. All they want to do is manipulate us. This whole thing. I'm going to go here. This whole thing with Brandon Johnson, man, him running for mayor on behalf of these people at CTU who are these white liberals. They're really radicals. He's their guy. He's their guy. He's not our guy.
And
He's
Paul
their
Vallas,
guy.
Paul Vallas is Ken Griffey's guy.
Exactly. But I
people.
do not like white people trying to tell me who or what is racist. And they're gonna say, oh, it's racism. It's racism. They're not doing anything to fix racism. They're just trying to get black people worked up emotionally so that we go vote for them. I'm tired of it. I don't do it anymore. I made that very clear a few months ago that I'm not going to do it. You're not going to call a person a racist and say I can't vote for him because he's a racist, Charles. You know that, don't you?
Well,
Come
Charles,
on, man. I know what these people
if you
are
want
up
to
to.
if you want to turn a blind eye to that, and you want to conflate these issues to support that position, have at it. But I'm saying to you, I clearly get that white folks are not in love with black folks. It is transactional. I hold on. I clearly get that. Now I'm not lumping, all white folks into some barrel of,
You just did,
of races. I'm talking about the people who have the power to do what they're doing. So that this thing is transactional. Now, Paul Vallas, race aside, is an incompetent person, and who's demonstrated his incompetency everywhere that he has gone. He's been kicked out everywhere that he's gone, and he's been rejected here 3 times. All of a sudden, he becomes the great white hope for Ken Griffin, or whatever his name is, and that group, and Sam Zell's and Jennifer Pritzker and all of those other people who happen to be Republicans because they want to have themselves a Republican mayor, right? And he's, with a straight face, can lie to the public and say, I am not going to be beholding to anybody. But they're okay with the FOP, who's been responsible for murdering and torturing black men in this city.
The FOP?
They have maybe
maybe
the
Jeffrey
FOP
Van
supports
Dyke and
maybe the Fraternal
John
Order
Burge,
of
but the Fraternal Order of Police.
Can I finish? The Fraternal Order of Police protect and defend people like Jason Van Dyke and others who have tortured black men, sent them to prison for crimes for which they did not commit, had nothing to do with. The CTU, I don't think they've tortured anybody. I don't think they've murdered anybody. I don't think they've sent anybody to prison at all.
No.
So this idea of trying to weaponize the CTU as some big boogeyman, and then Paul Vallas, who has this love affair with John Catanzaro and the Fraternal Order of Police, and that's okay? No, it's not.
Well, the CTU has failed miserably in educating children in the city of Chicago. When you have schools that they staff fully with their members, and young people are leaving those schools unable to read and do math at grade level and still get certificates. They sit in classes that are led by CTU members. So they've got their issues as well. Nobody's perfect. They've got their issues. But here's something I want you, I started, I said to you, what happened to the Green Team, to the Irish politicians in Chicago? I wonder.
Around.
They're still around, but they don't have the power.
Bosses.
The head, as you mentioned, has been cut off with Madigan and the Burke and the Dailies, and all. They just don't seem to be out there anymore.
Well,
but I think it speaks to something else. that you mentioned white people. White people are not going to be, they aren't the majority in the city now, but they will not be the majority in the United States by mid-century. And we're going to be petitioning a different kind of America, an America that is a lot browner than the America that you and I grew up in. And I think we have to always be cognizant of that, because if we're going to ask for reparations, who are we going to be asking for reparations moving forward? Somebody from whose parentage, whose ancestry is in India or China or Africa? Who are we going to be asking for reparations when we move forward? Our struggle has to be repositioned as we move forward. And we cannot become so consumed with white people and white racism because it's not, they're not going to be around anymore.
Wait,
I mean,
when you say we, who are you referring
black
to?
people.
Black people are not.
Black people.
Listen,
Ben,
black people are not
Mark,
consumed.
let me finish, man.
I mean, you're using
I
these,
think
these terms.
no, I used, that's a word I used, consumed by this whole issue of race. Like the president is consumed by it. The Democrat Party is consumed by it. They constantly talk about race and ways to divide people. They also talk about ways to divide people in terms of sexual orientation. They find ways to divide people as opposed to bringing people together. And I find it abhorrent.
And the Republicans don't?
Huh?
And the Republicans
They
don't?
can't. I mean, they don't. No, they don't. They are doing it a lot less than the Democrats. If they do it a lot less than the Democrats. Come on, man. Just because the Democrats tell you what you want to hear, you think that somehow they are more sympathetic to your situation. They aren't. They just know how to manipulate black people. That's what they do. They manipulate us.
This country, and certainly black folks have done better in terms of little progress from the fight of people from the Democratic side. The Republicans haven't offered anything legislatively, anything that you can point to that has been some undergirdment where black people can progress.
They haven't
Nothing.
passed it, but I mean,
They haven't offered anything.
Republicans have offered a lot historically.
What?
And What?
Please tell me. Please tell me.
Historically?
No. Recently.
I don't know what you mean by recently, but I can't.
You said they offered.
Well, I said historically. That's what I meant. Republican Party was
today.
They were the ones.
Well, you're voting
they
for
were
them
the
today,
ones
right?
who were in power.
But you're voting for them today.
Versus Board of Education was passed.
You're voting for them today.
Ones who enforced integration of public schools in Little Rock and places like that, and Mississippi. They were the ones who freed the slaves. The Democrat Party. They were the party of the Ku Klux Klan for many years. Why can't it change again? Because now we see that the Democrats are doing nothing for us. So maybe it's time that we begin to look to the other side and say, hey, you folks want to make a deal?
There's nothing on the
folks
other
want to
side.
make a deal? Why not?
Because there's nothing
Why
over
not?
there. There's
Well,
nothing
because
over there.
that's your opinion.
No.
Because you haven't looked.
I asked you
haven't
to
talked
show
to
me.
anybody. What do you
I've
mean?
asked you to
I
show
told
me.
you last
Tell
week,
me.
man.
Show me
I
a
told
policy.
you last week. A policy of school choice.
Oh, that's a failure. That is a failure.
But see, you just said that. You didn't let me finish. A policy of school choice. A policy, rethinking policy that so that it affects family values to the extent that
now
we,
you want to moralize
our family.
people.
That's not moralizing.
Yeah, it is.
No, man. That's not moralizing.
It is moralizing.
Man. Why you say it's moralizing?
But I'm asking you about a policy. I'm asking you about a policy of people who are responsible for passing legislation.
I gave you one.
But it's a failed policy.
I think. Well, no, it isn't a failed
yes,
policy.
Yes, it is.
It hasn't been
enacted. It has failed everywhere they have tried it.
Paul Vallas, if he's elected,
Paul
will
Vallas
go
tried it
into
in
different
Philadelphia.
Aspects of it.
Paul Vallas,
Well,
he tried it in Philadelphia,
gotta-
and it failed in Philadelphia.
Fine.
He tried it in New
Mark,
Orleans,
we
and
don't
it
try
failed
it
in New
Chicago.
Orleans. He went to
If
Ohio.
Paul Vallas
They
is
kicked
elected,
him out of
if
Ohio
Paul
because
Vallas is elected, he's going to try it in Chicago, and we'll see what goes on.
well, he
when
did
black
try it
people
in Chicago. And
can
guess what?
control
Guess what happened
our
in
own
Chicago?
schools,
Guess
our
what happened
own
in Chicago?
education of our children.
No, you don't.
That's all
No,
it
you don't,
is,
'cause
man.
what they're going to do
we need
is
to perfect it.
what they're
and you
going
know what
to do
they need?
is
In that conversation, they need people like you and me to go there and tell them what we want to see in
not
the schools
in school
that
choice.
our children
I don't want public
attend.
schools
No, I
turned
do.
into private
Not
people's
private
entity,
schools,
because
not
that's
totally
what they
private.
aren't, Charles.
Not
You don't
totally
want to listen
private.
to what the
Well,
facts about
fine,
what
man.
school choice is.
Good. I do listen. I do know. I do read in. I support school choice. Here's some other things that I
I
support.
thought you said you support things that
Look,
work.
What?
I thought you
I
were
support
interested
things
in.
that work.
They
Yes.
don't work, and you're refusing
tell
to
somebody
accept
at
it.
Urban Prep, South Suburban Prep, that it doesn't work. Tell somebody at Providence St.
Those
Mel
are
that it doesn't work.
those are
Tell
private schools.
somebody
Those are
at
private
Betty
schools. That's
Shabazz
not school choice.
That is
not school choice. Those are
because
private
then-
schools.
Because then the $29,000 that the Chicago public schools spend on each student, some of that money, half of it maybe, could go to a place like Betty Shabazz, could go to a place like Providence St. Mel,
No,
could go
well-
to a place like South Suburban Prep,
No, I
where
think
black
what we
people
need to do
are in
is
control
improve
of the
our
education
public
of our
school
children.
system.
That's what I'm talking about.
We need,
and that's the kind of system that I would support.
No,
And that's what Republicans are talking about.
Republicans are not.
Republicans are
Republicans
also
are not.
talking about. You want to hear about some other
if
things?
you believe that they're talking
Republicans
about
talk
that, they really got you hoodwinked.
Yeah, hunk week, bamboozled.
They
Certainly
got you.
no more than
They got you.
than the black folks
Because
who go out
The facts
and mindlessly
are, if you
vote for
don't
Democrats
wanna, if you don't
every
wanna,
time.
if you don't want to look at the facts of what happens whenever they try school choice,
That's your opinion, man.
it's not an opinion.
That is your opinion.
These are
That's your
facts, not
opinion.
my opinion.
That's your opinion.
giving
If
you-
they were facts, nobody would be talking about it anymore. We're
Republicans
still
are the only
working
ones
on
that are
it.
talking about it.
Right.
They're the
Right.
only ones
And
that talk
that's
about it because they
why I
know they
would
don't
vote-
work. Because
That's
they're
why
only
I would
interested
look
in
at a candidate.
they're only interested
who
in
wants to talk
failed
about
systems that
more so than I would talk
disenfranchise
to a
black
candidate
community.
who
That's
did
what they're
not want
interested
to
in.
talk about that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Democrats want to talk about what's your pronoun. Men can get pregnant. All this stuff. I don't care about that
No,
stuff.
well, that sounds like
I really
you
drag
talk
queen.
about that a
What's
lot.
up with the drag
You
queen
talk
thing?
about that a
Can
lot.
you explain that?
Nope, because I
You're
don't care about
progressive,
it.
man.
I
What's
don't
up with
care
the-
about it.
I don't
care
either.
about it.
I don't care about it. But they talk a lot about it, man. And and that's what Democrats want to talk about. Go for
Well,
it.
wait a second.
I'm going to
Hold on a
talk about
second.
something else.
Wait a second. Republicans don't talk about this?
Talk about what? They talk about it as being ridiculous.
No.
I mean-
they don't try to pass legislation about it?
About what?
About,
They're trying. The House is doing what it can right
in
now.
Florida.
But you've got
in
to
Florida,
do.
they have
You've
proposed,
got to do.
they're proposing,
the Senate and the president has to sign it.
So they're proposing in Florida, actual law proposals in Florida.
Mhm.
They're proposing to do things like divorce or to abolish the Democratic Party. This is a
Wait a minute.
This is a hold on a second.
divorce or abolish.
You're a Republican.
I don't know anything about that.
Okay, well, I'm just
I can't
telling
really
you.
comment on
I'm
it.
just telling you what
But
in
I
Florida.
can't. You're telling me. You're
You can
reporting.
go and look it up.
I have to go look it up. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you so you can go look it up.
Well, I'm
and-
going to go look it
and-
up.
and-
I'll
right.
look it up, man.
So they're proposing to abolish the Democratic Party in Florida.
Mhm. Is that's
The-
something? Who's sponsoring that? Is the governor sponsoring
yeah,
it?
the governor.
The
governor,
DeSantis is
right.
sponsoring that.
Mhm. And
to
then-
abolish
hold on a
the
second.
Democrat Party.
Yeah.
Mm.
in Florida. They are also proposing to take $4 billion out of the public school system in Florida and give it to what you call school choice.
I thought it didn't
Right.
work.
So it doesn't work.
But why are they doing
It doesn't work because this is what Republicans do because they don't
Mhm.
care about educating, certainly poor kids, and they certainly don't care about educating black kids.
Oh, really?
They're
Okay.
also proposing a law right now. They're proposing a law. And the $4 billion that they're taking out of public schools, they don't want there to be a debate on it. In the public, the public comment, they've reduced it from 4 minutes to 1 minute, meaning they don't even want any
Mhm.
debate on it.
And so
Okay.
what is
And then
that?
the other thing that they're proposing is Republicans
Mhm.
they want to pass a law that you can be fined $35,000 for calling them a racist. These are the people that you like to support.
This is all stuff that you're
Well,
talking.
when you go home,
well, I mean,
you can look it up.
I tell you, Democrats gonna have to pay a lot of fines, man, because
you can go look it
they
up.
call people racist all the time.
Well, this is what the people you call
Joe Biden calls people
the great
racist.
Republicans
He says it's white
that really
supremacy.
are looking to solve problems. This is the kind of nonsense that they have.
I mean,
and he's right about
there's
it.
no. I mean, that's something that I have to look up. I really have never heard any of that, and it's not part of the conversation that I've had. But I still think that I'm also, the few voices in the Congress right now, it's only maybe a half dozen or so voices, but they're all Republican, who oppose this war in Ukraine. And I oppose this war in Ukraine. I don't think we should be sending those people all that money to fight the Russians. I don't believe that. And I think a lot of people don't believe that. And for that reason, with the Republicans being more on the anti-war side, I would want to go over there, because I don't see the point in what they're doing over there, and they're lying about it constantly about what's going on.
Wait a minute.
Hold on. No. Listen.
You say that they're lying about it?
Oh my God!
You said they're lying about it?
Oh my gosh!
What evidence do you have of that?
Because they say the Ukrainians are winning and the Ukrainians are getting stomped over there, man. All you got to do is read beyond the mainstream media, and you'll see that the Ukrainians are having a hell of a time trying to survive against the Russians. But we're being told that they're fighting valiantly and heroically, and they're winning against the Russians. The Russians are going to steamroll these people, and Biden is there saying, we're going to be there for as long as it takes. Let me finish, man. Biden says we're going to be there for as long as it takes.
We should be.
And you really? You believe that?
We should provide them. We should continue to provide
them. But don't go fight.
Zelensky
wants you to go.
And the reason why we should not, and the reason why that we should provide them with the resources so that they can defend themselves, to make sure that Putin doesn't win there, so that he can't go into Poland. Because guess what happens? Hold on a second. You know what happens if he goes into Poland or one of the ally countries? Do you know? No. Do you know what happens? You don't know what happens. Yes, I do.
What's going?
Yes, I do.
If
that happens,
you're a geopolitical expert. You know what's going to happen.
I happen to pay attention to some of the rules, because this is what you and Republicans. I guess I have to just call you a Republican, because
I'm an independent.
But you've taken on that whole Republicans Act.
If the Republicans oppose it,
here is what happens. Do you want for Americans to go to war?
No, I don't want nuclear war to happen, and that's what we're flirting with.
Let me just ask you this question. Do you want for us to send soldiers over there to go to war?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Well, I don't think we should be sending tanks over there either.
You should be. So what you're proposing, so that I'm clear.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're proposing is that we should do nothing, right?
We should press and sue for peace. That's what we should do.
Sue for peace?
Yes,
you're going to sue.
No.
You're going to sue.
That's a term. Don't. It's not a. Don't worry about legal. We should be on the side of peace, not any of this. As long as we have to. And
how do you do that? How do you propose to do that?
We sit there and we send our diplomats there and we say,
they tried that.
What are we doing?
They tried that.
Look,
they tried that.
Ukraine is not a signatory.
They tried that with Putin, not Newton. With they tried it.
Putin,
and he still did it.
You know what's up with what's interesting about Putin is that Putin has the support of the Russian people, where Joe Biden has been underwater.
No, he doesn't.
Oh, he does.
No, he doesn't. He only has the support because they're not getting all of the information.
Whatever.
That's why they have the support.
The information.
They're not getting any information. He's only getting the information that he wants them to get. But they're starting to get the information.
And
they're starting to get the information.
Would you hear that?
And because you have so many Russians that are trying to defect, running away from. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man, they're running away from Ukraine.
No, they're not
running away. Do we have?
No, they're not.
We can. You can join this conversation if you'd like. We're at 708 223-8953. My name is Charles Thomas, along with Mark Wallace. We are talking about world affairs now. We went from City Hall to international affairs. Again, that number is 708-223-8953. You're listening to the People's Show on Intellectual Radio and
YouTube and Facebook live.
YouTube and Facebook live.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Give us a call. Join in this. Help me make this man see the light and help.
Yeah.
Help.
Yeah. Okay. I see the light. But now let me just, I want to go back to this and then we can move on. I don't want to see a U.S. soldier sent into war. Not another one. I don't want to see another one. So if we have to send resources over there for them to defend themselves without sending our soldiers over there, our men and women to die, send the resources. Send the resources.
What do you think? What would happen?
Because of the international agreements between NATO, the NATO countries. If Putin gets into one of those areas, we have to send soldiers.
Okay, fine. But the thing is, Ukraine is not a signatory to NATO. They're not a member of NATO. Okay, now listen, I got a question for you. The report is that Chairman Xi from China, the President Xi from China, is going to visit Moscow. And that when he visits, he will put forth a peace plan for some way to stop the fighting, the shooting, and the killing in Ukraine. It would more than likely mean that the Russians would not move further west. Good. They would stay where they are. Good. And continue
get out
holding Crimea. No, they won't get out. They would stay there. And NATO would negotiate and the shooting would stop.
I don't know.
What would you think if the Chinese started sending weapons to the Russians? Wouldn't that be a horrible situation where the Russians now have Chinese weapons, which means they would have an unlimited supply? I mean, the United States is sending money and arms to Ukraine. As the Chinese start sending money and arms to Russia, think about what a horrific situation that this administration has put this country in. We have made Russia and the Chinese allies.
No, the administration is doing what it is supposed
for
to.
Us.
No,
and
Putin did this, not this administration.
Did it. Putin has the right to. He can do what he wants to do. He's the president of Russia.
Yeah.
We can't. Okay. Are we the ones who are supposed to stop this? We are the ones supplying most of the weapons. Germans, by the way,
we're supplying the weapons, which is the right thing to do militarily, so that we don't have to send our men and women over. No, we're not.
Well, they're losing the war.
No,
the Ukrainians are. You ever heard of a place called Bakhmut?
This is a.
Read in on that.
If the Russians are winning, it is a Pyrrhic victory for them because they have lost just about all of their top commands. They have lost thousands and thousands of their soldiers, which now they're having to pull men out of prison.
I remember back in
train men to go over there, and people are defecting out of Russia because they do not want to go over
You really believe that?
It's true.
We back in the Vietnam
So just
era,
because you don't believe it doesn't make it not true.
I know. I don't, quite frankly, I don't know the complete truth, particularly when it comes to death and casualties. Because I remember in Vietnam,
who knows?
Man, you would think we killed every North Vietnamese there was, because we would do body counts on them every day. We killed another 300 of them today, and we keep going and going and going. That's what they're doing over there. Both sides are saying they're killing more than they are. That's just the way. Well, the first casualty. I don't see. And that's what's happening.
President Zelensky is the right person there. I think that Putin thought that he was just going to roll over I thought I think most people and the experts would say that he thought that those people were just going to roll over and allow for him to just come in and take over their country. That didn't happen.
No, it didn't. He didn't send in the big stuff. Like he used last week, he used what's called a
he ain't got much stuff.
Listen, man, he used what's called a hypersonic missile. It goes 5 times the speed of sound. And the Russians have these things. We probably have them too, but he used them in the war. He escalated to these high-tech new age weapon systems that are guided by satellites. And again, these missiles travel at 5 times the speed of sound. The Ukrainians don't have anything like that.
This man is just aggrieved that tiny little Russia that has the economy of, I don't know, France or something. And he's really angry with Gorbachev for breaking up the Soviet Union. He made that very clear. And that's his big thing. He wants to be some big superpower that he's not. And that's not going to happen.
Yeah, the United States is having its issues in terms of being a superpower as well. I mean, I think that you're seeing the big guys, the big countries around the world now vying for what they're trying to establish, essentially a new world order. We noticed last week that the Saudi Arabians,
wait.
A new world order. Yeah, a new world order where the United States is not the most powerful country in the world. China is making a play to be that. They went to Iran and settled a violent dispute between Iran and Saudi Arabia. The Chinese did.
Well, Mr. President, keep doing what you're doing to keep us out of a war.
Do you mean
to keep us out of a war?
Joe Biden?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
He's the president of the United States.
Well, he hasn't kept us out of a war. We're spending billions of dollars that could be used to in this country to help deal with some of the social problems that we have here.
Well, we are,
but
doing
we're
that.
spending the money.
No, we're spending
all the way over.
You know what? We're spending. We're more of $1 billion, and I hope that Governor Pritzker, Tony Pretwinkle, the next mayor of the city of Chicago, will get together. All those black mayors, all those black aldermen, black commissioners, that they will get together and roll their sleeves up and negotiate with companies to bring their companies here in Chicago and the south and west sides of Chicago, to bring some of those billions of dollars that are coming to Illinois. The first phase is $18 billion, and then we'll be getting more. The Big CHIPS Act to develop these chips manufacturers so that we can get people to working in careers so that we can deal with these socioeconomic issues that lead to the kinds of crime and violence that is spreading that nobody wants. I want them to do something about that. That's what I want them to get focused on. Zero focused on that. That's what I want for them to do.
Yeah, and I think they could probably do that if they could redirect some of the spending that is moving at this point to Eastern Europe and fighting what I believe to be a losing fight against the Russians. And I think it's going to be very embarrassing for Joe Biden when he has to cut and run from Ukraine under the pretense of a peace plan or just a out and out surrender. But he can't win. You're fighting Russia in their own backyards. They have weapons that are just as deadly as yours, and you can't send fighter jets to Ukraine because who's going to fly them? You got Americans. Then you got American soldiers in the war.
American soldiers are not in the war. The American soldiers are not in the war. You keep saying that. The American soldiers are not in the war.
They are in the war.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
They're running the
No, they're not.
The anti-missile systems.
Are not.
Who's repairing those systems when they break? Who's repairing them? Ukrainians? They don't even have them. They're not even a NATO country.
You said this.
There's Poles over there fighting. There are Austrians. There are
Charles,
other people who are
don't try to deflect from what you said.
NATO
you
weapons,
said
man.
that American soldiers are in the war. They are not.
American soldiers. I would guess that American soldiers
now
are
you're
helping.
Guessing.
Wait. That's all I can do. That's all you can do as well.
No, I can pay attention to what's happening.
No, I'm paying attention too. But if you have a satellite system that is being used to monitor the movement of Russians on the ground, there are Americans working those satellite
systems. We have Americans.
Systems.
We have soldiers that are doing that all over the world.
Exactly.
We're doing that all over the world. So what are you talking about?
Are supporting the Ukrainian army? Come on, man.
Yeah, but they're not fighting the war.
They've had a couple of them killed over there and a couple of them captured.
These are people who volunteered to go over there that were not in the military.
They were
not in the
contractors,
military.
Mercenaries?
No, they were not even in the military.
Blackwater.
They were not in the.
Ever heard of Blackwater? The Russians right now, they have a mercenary force that one of the oligarchs has funded. That is really
from Russia.
Yeah.
Well, of course they've been doing this.
Yeah. So this guy, they're winning in Bakhmut, which is a rail hub in eastern Ukraine that is critical, and the Russians have now captured probably most of it. And these are mercenaries. And the interesting thing about these mercenaries is that they are not subject to the Geneva Convention. So, man, they could do some just vile stuff and get away with it. And Putin doesn't have to take responsibility for it. This is the kind of stuff that's happening that we're slowly getting involved more and more with. And I really don't think we should. I mean, and that's one voter's opinion. What you got there, man?
There's a debate coming up. There's a debate that's coming up. I mean, because I don't pretend to be a foreign policy expert. But there's certain things that I know.
With whom?
So there's a public safety debate that's coming up tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Where is it going to be?
That's going to be at the UIC Forum.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be moderated by Laura Washington and Eric Zorn.
I know Eric Zorn. In fact, I just had some back and forth with him.
All right. So that's going to be tomorrow, 4:30 p.m. to 6. I'm not going to debates. I'm spending my time working on the ground, and going door to door, doing what we can do to get people out. I'm also organizing a big meet and greet. I don't know if you call it big, but it's going to be a couple hundred young black men between the ages of 18 to 25, which is the targeted most vulnerable group, because I want for Brandon to see what has to happen should he become
so Brandon's going to be there.
The mayor. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they said they want to hear from him. So we had this planning meeting over at room 43. Thank you, Norman Bolden. And just a plug for him. If you need a place to go have an event, room 43 right there at 1039 East 43rd Street. And he has a beautiful restaurant right on the corner there. So over there, we had about 60 people that came to this. There were a number of young black, I don't want to call them boys, young black men, who said, I've never voted before. I've never voted before. I'm very interested in the brother, but I want to hear what his plans are. And I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to organize for him to have an exchange with them. And I think that's, to me, that's where politics has to be. You have to get on the ground, and you have to get to people who are not coming to these. They're not coming to this stuff, right? They're not coming to this. Not that these people are not but the meat of the problem that people, we talk about are those people who are most vulnerable. And I think that, they need to have those conversations. And so we're planning that for Friday and on the far south side of Chicago. And I think it's going to be healthy, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see what that dialogue is.
Yeah, people that vote for the first time. I mean, getting people to vote, that seems to be the that's the problem. I mean, because particularly young people, the voter turnout among young people has been abysmal of all stripes. I mean, not just black young people, but even up north. I mean, I'd say that this first round, I mean, it was pretty much dominated by older voters, by seniors who voted. I mean, I think that Brandon's got some work to do there as well.
He does. But, Ricky Hendon, whom I haven't agreed with on some things, certainly didn't agree with the candidate that he was supporting. But he did a live yesterday, right? Ricky Hendon is on Facebook a lot. But he did a live yesterday that was very moving. But he gave some information on that live about who supported who in the election. And he said, of course, time went forth. Some people get confused whether it's spring ahead, fall back, and all that kind of stuff. So, and he said that 15% of black people, registered black folks, voted in this first round. 15%.
That's it.
That's what he says. I have to check the numbers, but if Ricky Hendon said the numbers, I'm likely to believe him because he knows that process. But he said 15%. He said Paul Vallas got 99% of all white votes of those that voted. Right, 99%
of white votes.
That's what he said.
Brandon didn't get any white votes.
Well, he got some, but according
who voted for Brandon because the area.
I'm just repeating what he said. I have to go.
Okay.
I
don't believe.
So
that.
Then he says that the Hispanic candidate got almost all of the votes. Chewy, right? And and that Brandon did better, I guess, than Paul Vallas did in all of the black wards.
Brandon did better in
all of the black wards than Paul Vallas. But
I believe that.
Yeah. So
but not by much.
So, well, because you had Willie Wilson got
his. It could have been by much.
His 10%.
It could have been by much.
Right. So
he couldn't have got many.
Now, but Willie Wilson has a lot of problems now with the black ministers.
Okay, tell me about that.
Willie Wilson called a meeting over at the Sweet Holy Spirit Church last Saturday. Called about 300 pastors over there. And he says, I want you all to tell me which way to go. And he's had them. Who wants me to vote for or support Paul Vallas? Few of them stood. Who wants me to vote or support Brandon Johnson? More than 90% of the pastors there stood. So they thought they did what he asked them to do. And he comes out and supports Paul Vallas. Now, I knew that Willie Wilson was not going to support Brandon from the get-go. I knew that. He wasn't going there.
That was a good assumption. That was good. Yeah.
So, but the black pastors that he had, he's got a lot of issues. That's one of the reasons why he's going on this circuit trying to kind of defend himself.
But the black preachers,
that sort of thing.
The black preachers, I mean,
I guess he thought he owned them.
Well, or maybe they think they have a lot more power and influence than they really do. And I don't think that's
the issue, though. That's not the issue
black
here.
Preachers in Chicago.
That's not the issue here.
Political.
I'm not talking about that, Charles. You're talking about something completely different. I'm talking about you asking for some people to come and give you some input.
Yeah.
And those people showed up to where you asked them to come. Not that you paid them, but you asked them to come, and you told them that you were going to do what because they represent.
Not entirely them.
Oh, of course, because those are the people that those are the
entirely them.
That's what he said.
Come on, man. I voted for Willie Wilson in the first round, and then no preacher tell me to do that. I did that on my own.
I'm not talking about you, Charles.
I'm talking about there are people out there like me who
many.
don't go to some storefront church down the way.
Charles.
Huh?
No.
Yeah, but there are people. No, I'm not saying they're going to vote for Paul Vallas, but I'm saying they didn't make their decision after we voted for Willie Wilson to go because some preacher stood up in a meeting. Oh no. I think for myself, and I think most people like me.
I'm not talking about you or themselves. People like you. He has problems with those people who have supported him. Those ministers who have supported him. He has issues with them. Listen, I don't know why they're surprised. Because I knew that Willie Wilson was not going to support Brandon Johnson. Willie Wilson is a staunch right-wing Republican. That's what he is.
He's a conservative. He's a conservative black man. That's what he is. He's run for stuff.
He is a
as both. He ran for the Democratic primary for president of these United States. I remember
he did what?
Willie Wilson ran for president of the United States in the Democratic primary against Hillary Clinton in 2016. And he's a Democrat. Then he voted for Trump. I think he confessed that at some point. He has conservative idea. Yes, he did. When? I think in 2016 he said that he voted. Yeah, he said it publicly. He voted for Trump. And I don't know what he did in 2020, but he said it publicly and that he did in 2016.
All right.
I mean, but hey, I don't hold that against him.
I'm just glad he's not going to be. I
just don't think that those preachers have anywhere near the influence that they think they have. I mean, they get their little payoffs from City Hall. Daley used to pay him $40,000 for a quote unquote after school program, so they get that was their Cadillac money. But
this is not that group of. This is not that group of ministers. These are ministers that have supported Willie Wilson.
I know. No, Willie Wilson. Stop, Mark.
Have asked for him. Hold on a second, Charles. Willie Wilson is the one who called this meeting.
Willie Wilson supports them. They don't support Willie Wilson. Willie Wilson supports them.
You mean
he has
supported them $200 or $300 or so?
No, more than that. He usually gives $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, but he's been supporting them for decades. So he doesn't. Willie ain't got to listen to them. They don't control Willie.
Then why did he call them?
Because he wanted to hear what they had to say.
Okay, so
preachers, what do you have to say? Oh no, my better angels tell me that the people want me to support Paul Vallas. That's what happened.
Yeah. No, that's not what happened.
Willie said not what happened. Willie said that these black politicians,
the people did not. The people. Let me tell you, the saboteur of what Paul Vallas does, because I experienced his saboteur. I'm not talking about something I heard. Right? He sent a bunch of people to sabotage one of our own internal meetings. So I know who Paul Vallas is. Okay. All right. So I know who he is.
Willie Wilson, again, is supporting the churches. The churches don't support necessarily Willie Wilson. And Willie Wilson made a very eloquent observation when he said that black politicians have never done anything for me. Why do I think that I have to be bound to support a black politician? Because black politicians have done nothing for me and nothing for my community, because they are more loyal to the Democrat Party than they are to their constituency. So Willie
and the Republicans that he's running,
ain't no Republicans doing anything. So we really can't blame them locally, Chicago and Cook County, because there's none of them there. None of them there, man.
Thank you for telling the truth about that.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. But yeah. So anyway, so that was the interesting riff that was going on last week with that. Now I had my own little tat-a-tat-tat with Tony Pretwinkle.
So what's up with your boy Chewy, man? He still hasn't endorsed Brandon, man. What's up with him? How come he doesn't come out and get at least whatever votes he can drum up? I think he's waiting to see who he thinks is going to win, because he's in some political trouble. He needs to be on the winner's side, whoever it is, whether it's Brandon Johnson or Paul Vallas. He has to I think he's he's in survival mode because he's about to go back to Washington.
His alderman
DC.
is supporting Brandon. His
Okay,
alderman,
well, we'll see.
and some of his people who worked with his campaign is supporting Brandon.
I mean, I want to see what Chewy is going to say. I mean, or does Chewy play it so that he can be with the winner who can support him and protect him from forces? See, there are people who can run against Chewy. One of them is this lady who is a state rep from Cicero. Her name is Elizabeth Hernandez. She is the one that Pritzker backed to replace Robin Kelly as chairman of the state Democrat Party. So
there's not a Democrat Party, Democratic.
I call it Democrat Party.
There's no Democrat
Well, I call
party.
it Democrat Party. That's what we do. If they're Democrats, come on, man.
It's a Democratic.
Does that bother
party.
you? It's Democrat. It's a Democrat.
I think you do yourself a disservice by saying
no, it's
that.
a Democrat Party.
Okay.
I mean, among the lefties, I do, but it's
if you want to continue to discredit yourself that way, go right ahead.
I will, man. No problem. I have no problem doing it.
All right.
That you think of that Chewy is vulnerable. And I think he knows it because he had such a poor showing in this mayor's race. He's vulnerable, and I think he's going to look for a winner, someone to help him maintain his congressional seat.
I think that Chewy came out. In fact, I knew he came out thinking that they really had it in the bag because Clem Belanoff was on cloud 9 when he was talking to me. Well, we're going to win this thing. I know we're going to win it. We're going to win this thing. We're going to win this thing. Then I called Clem. He responded. And I said, Clem, I need you to come on the show with me and Charles. What? I don't know if we can do that, Mark. I was like, why not? Well, Charles is, I said, so Charles has his point of view and I have my point of view. You're going to be just answering.
No, so he mentioned me specifically that because I would ask tough questions. I mean, that's what I do.
Well, I would ask tough questions too.
But I mean, he mentioned me. He said, Charles,
I have a problem. Well, I don't know if any of them think that they can come and sit and going to have a cakewalk, because I'm going to ask you some real questions about things that are important to my community as it relates to the city. But I find that a problem for me supporting a candidate that can't come and sit in front of both of us because, there are people who have different points of view. And if you want to be the representative, you should be able to come on and answer questions. Hey, and not have these pre-scripted questions. Then I asked, who was it? Paul Vallas. Talked to Paul Vallas's people after they won the, can you all come on the program? He says to me, can you all send us the questions that you're going to answer? I said, no, we don't operate that way.
No, I don't operate that way.
We don't operate that way. I said, if he wants to be the mayor of the city of Chicago, he should be able to defend whatever his plan is and answer questions from two citizens. I find that to be a problem. I find that to be a real
but none
problem.
of them did that. So, Brandon did it by phone.
Yeah.
But the rest of them, I mean, it doesn't really. I mean, I get it.
It sends a message.
Get it. I mean, it
sends a message.
They're looking for numbers and they're looking for softballs, things they can hit out of the park. And they all are. That's what they do. I mean, they don't want to do anything that's particularly challenging. They don't want that. That's not what the consultants tell them to do. I mean, I've worked on campaigns, and I know that you protect your candidate at all costs. And I know that if they come here, I know I can only speak for myself. I'm going to ask you some really tough questions.
Well, what kind of questions would you be asking Paul Vallas? You
Paul Vallas. I would ask Paul.
I
would ask Paul Vallas about his stand on how he has changed from the FOP to now he is this great defender of all things progressive. And I would ask him questions about immigration. I would ask him questions but pointed questions that I think it would reveal him. It would reveal who he is. And I don't think that we really got that, for instance, in the Channel 5 debate. And we certainly don't get it from commercials, because all he tells you is that he's going to stop crime. I mean, and that's about all he can say. But I think whoever is elected, whether it's Brandon or Paul Vallas, they are going to have a huge crackdown on crime. And I think that Brandon will do essentially the same thing that Paul Vallas would do. He's going to try to make the city inhospitable to those who would commit crimes. And, I trust Brandon won't have to do that. He'll just have to do it. There's no way in the world you cannot. Otherwise, you don't have a city.
Well, if they don't do something about what produces that,
they're going to do that.
One of them,
and I think Brandon,
no matter who would be, is going to be successful.
On that part of it, I really think Brandon would do a better job than Paul Vallas, but that doesn't preclude the fact that you got to do something now. You got to do something to stop the criminals now. Yeah. I trust that Brandon would do a better job dealing with the root causes of it. But if you don't have 5-10 years to deal with the root causes, you got to make the train safe now. Yes, you got to do it. You got to stop these guys from taking catalytic converters off cars now. You got to do it. You got to stop the stick-up guys, the carjackers.
That has really subsided because the ATF did a major crackdown and a major taking down of a major group of $660 million catalytic converter.
No, man, they need to do something about that.
Okay.
Man. They ruined your car, man.
They took a big chunk of those guys down that were the top of the guys. That was a big dip, because you don't hear a whole lot about that happening. There's not a lot of instances of that happening anymore. But I mean, because it was happening 60, 75 cars a day. But you don't hear so much about that because they took that group down. That's been about 4 months now, 3 or 4 months ago, that they cracked down on that catalytic converter thing. They had to do something about that, and thank God that they were successful, at least tapping into it, that they were able to kind of slow it down, because it was bad. Mm-hmm. I lost my catalytic converter. On my car. It was stolen 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So
what was it, on the street? Parked on the street?
Yeah, I was parked in front of one of my buildings. Mm-hmm. It stopped at one of my buildings. I was there for a couple hours. I come out, and boy, car sound like a
and it was in the middle of the day.
Yes.
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 They just get under the car. Nobody sees them.
Well, what they do is they have another car. They pull up next to the car, and the person with the drill gets out. And so they're laying between the car that's the getaway car and your car, so nobody can actually see. It's like somebody maybe picking somebody up. Mm-hmm. And they do this so quickly.
How quickly?
I think it happens like within a minute or two.
Really?
Yes. They know exactly what to go do. So,
and they're looking for precious metal. They're looking for, what is it, palladium and some other
I'm not
metal.
sure what it is, but whatever it is, it was. I mean, there was a big story that they took this group down. They said it was to the tune of $600
and they were working in other
cities
as well.
Yeah, it was a big thing.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, man, and this goes to something that you pointed out. And I'm not talking about white collar criminals in the corporate suites. I'm talking about people who are buying the stolen material. Mm-hmm. And I don't hear enough about them being arrested and prosecuted.
Right.
And because if you cut off the money source, then you've stopped the crime, because now there's no money in it.
Right.
Stealing it. And I don't see enough. I mean, I know that Brandon talks about hiring more detectives for the police department to solve the crimes as opposed to just responding to them. That's a good point.
Mhm.
He makes an excellent point about that. That we do need more detectives, but we got to have more. We got to make it inhospitable to do some of the things that these people are doing, that are making life in the city horrible, and they basically made State Street a ghost town now. It's terrible down there.
Well, it's got to be, again, that's not going to happen if they don't do something about the inequities that people are experiencing. So if that doesn't happen, if there is not this, what do they call it? This side-by-side effort to do that. Now, one of the things, if it happens, and I'm hoping it does, this guy, Derek Dudley and Jim Reynolds is building this 200,000 square foot television production studio on 78th and South Chicago. They're really using my golden triangle formula. So they're taking the old hangar at CVS High School and they're turning it into a television production training facility.
So that's where it's going to be at CVS.
That training facility. This one, it's going to be there. But that needs to be spread. That same thing needs to be continued to attract companies to come, negotiate the deals with the companies, do like they did in Mississippi first, partner with the community colleges or partner with city colleges or Chicago State or Governor State, partner with them and train people for these positions, bring these companies in, give them the tax incentives for the exchange and make it just as successful as it is working in other places. You're talking about putting people into manufacturing. I looked up the numbers, and manufacturing in Illinois I know some people allude to it is dead. It's not. It's actually growing.
Mm-hmm.
And the average salary in manufacturing now, I looked at where cars are falling off, right? Cars is like third or fourth in Illinois. But the average salary is like $87,000 a year. That's a great career for
it's a job that you can feed your family, and you can buy a house, and you can take care of the house, and you can
stabilize a community. We can stabilize community.
They closed they closed the Belvedere plant up north. Chrysler did.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't know what they call it now, Chrysler or whatever.
Yeah.
But it used to be the Chrysler plant.
Yeah.
And they're having some issues down in Normal at that Rivian plant.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what big manufacturers have really moved to Illinois over these past 10 years. A lot of companies don't want to come here because they don't want to sign on to the pension debt. They don't want to be have to share in the payment of the whatever it is, however many billions of dollars it is in pension debt that the state has accrued. I don't know what the companies are that have come here. I'm sure there are some, but I don't know of any really big, like you have several thousand employees building something. And Caterpillar, I know down in Peoria, is shaky because they don't, they've moved their world headquarters out of Chicago. I think they moved to Atlanta. I don't know where Caterpillar went, but I don't see anybody moving here. You said that you have heard of some companies that have come here.
No, over the weekend, I looked at this report that showed that manufacturing in 2018 was at 115 billion, and now it's up to 120 billion. So,
Inflation.
No, in terms of what their
I don't know
they're
what
growing.
the new
So,
companies are. I mean, I think
um,
that's a great idea. That's great if that is in fact happening. But I haven't. Only thing I've seen growing in Illinois is weed, gaming, gambling,
yeah,
casinos,
but
and
those are not.
abortion.
Yeah, but
That those are the three
yeah,
things that Illinois is sort of like basing its future on.
gaming, and Paul Vallas said that he was going to do gaming.
Gaming.
Yeah,
How does he do gaming?
He's going to, I guess, allow for there to be uh, gambling in these different establishments.
Like what?
So
Really? No, I don't know that he has that kind of power as mayor. I think that's a state situation.
no, villages can opt in because they're
all
casino. Over, yeah, they're all over this.
Oh,
the
you
south
mean like the
suburbs.
Bars?
Yes.
Yeah, he would need an ordinance to do that.
Yeah,
No doubt. Yeah, that you
well,
mean put them in the
we,
bars?
Yeah, and we don't need that. We don't need that because in 2010, Pat Quinn they did commissioned a study for gaming all over Illinois, statewide, and communities that had the median income of $75,000 or above opted out. Communities at $50,000 or below opted in, right? That is the worst thing that could happen to Black communities. I looked at places like in the 60628 ward where the lottery took $30 million in 1 year.
Out of one ward?
Out of one ward. 60628. All right. So gaming is not a recipe for improving our communities. They just don't. And that study shows people who they don't want gambling casinos or gaming. It's not a panacea at all, or a recipe for improving our community.
But
you think that crime is bad? You think that crime is bad, or weed? Weed.
But you need to talk to the people at your Democrat Party, man, because that's what they're promoting, man. That's what they're promoting.
No, they're not.
Well, man, yes, they do, man. They have been the Governor Pritzker expanded
Paul Vallas.
gaming.
Paul Vallas is the one who said that.
5 new casinos in Illinois. The, of course, legalized recreational weed, and there are weed stores all over. They're there. I mean, you see them, and there have been plans to make sure that Illinois is a destination point for those who are seeking reproductive rights, if I can put it mildly, the abortions. So those are the things I'm seeing on the move in Illinois. I haven't seen any new factories coming in, new industries. I'm seeing stuff like that. And now, I mean, your candidate, he wants to tax financial transactions, and that very well could lead to an exodus of financial firms from the city. I mean, we'll see.
I'm telling you for a fact.
Okay, for a fact.
That is not.
That is not?
No.
That is not what?
It won't happen.
What won't happen?
They won't be leaving.
They won't use. No. That's a fact. You say.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
But not.
You can put a dime on it.
It's
not going to happen.
That's a fact. That's a bet.
Yeah.
That's a bet. That's not a fact. That's a bet.
That's a bet. Right.
Okay.
That's a bet. It's not happening. It's not happening.
Okay.
They're not moving to outback Iowa or Kansas. They're not going there. They don't want to. The young traders don't want to go to Iowa. They don't have any restaurants. They don't have any real entertainment there. They're not going there. So
I tell you, man, because Chicago does attract a lot of young people. I mean, you see them. I mean, I think those are people who are coming into the city. The tragedy is that they're leaving as soon as they get married and have children. They go to the suburbs because the schools. The schools are so awful. They don't want to.
Well, that's why there has to be a.
They don't want to raise their children in Chicago public schools.
We have great schools all over Chicago, and not just some selective enrollment.
And you got Vallas and Brandon Johnson, who have been players in the demise of the Chicago public schools.
Vallas
That's why I
has
really
been-
can't get
Vallas has
excited
been
about
the
any of it. Well,
he's
Brandon's
been-
been with CTU. I mean, come on. CTU
he
has
didn't
not
make
helped
he did not
the
make
situation.
they don't make the budgetary decisions.
Well,
like
they don't make
Paul
the
Vallas.
budgetary decisions,
Paul
but they
Vallas-
decided to go on strike.
Paul Vallas,
To go on strike and
okay,
leave
all right.
Well,
Well, that's
several
what unions
100,000
do.
children
That's what unions do.
to their own devices.
Paul Vallas,
right. That's
Paul
what they do.
Vallas-
And that's
Paul
why I
Vallas
want them on the
gutted-
fifth floor.
Paul Vallas gutted the CPS and he sent hundreds of janitors out of work, and now we have probably some of the dirtiest schools
Mhm.
around, right? And I had a bunch of them down at Rainbow Push trying to help them save their homes that lost their jobs, laid off all these people, and misuse pension money. I mean, go down the line of Paul Vallas's complete destruction of educational systems here in Chicago, Philadelphia, Ohio, and in New Orleans. He's a complete disaster. He's a complete disaster. And this is why you don't put so-called budget directors in charge of education. There's a reason why they rejected him 3 times.
Yeah, the thing is, man, he probably right now, man, probably the favorite to take over at City Hall, man, because I don't know. I get the sense that Brandon just isn't catching fire in the right places and motivating people to come out and vote. Maybe it'll happen in the next
It's
3
happening.
weeks.
It's happening.
You're working at it,
It's
and
happening.
maybe it'll happen. But
Yeah.
I don't see the momentum at this
Yeah,
point.
it's happening.
And I'm sure that he's going to have CTU out there working really hard for him, man, shaking the trees and
A lot of
getting
other
it
people are
done.
working hard.
Mhm.
A lot of people are working
Yeah,
hard for him.
yeah.
A lot of people are working hard.
They have the troops,
You
man. I mean, I think that's one reason he got into the runoff is because I thought, I've said this here. I thought that Stacey Davis Gates, Jesse Sharkey, Jackson Potter, whoever else is still in charge of the union, did a brilliant job in getting Brandon this far. They did a brilliant job. They counted their money. They spent it in the right place. They got the 21% of the vote that they needed to get in the runoff. And now they're in a position where they can win.
All right.
They're in a position where they can win. Do I think they can? Yeah. If they get those black people out to vote and they vote for a black man because he's a black man,
Now,
he'll win.
I agree with you there. They have to get the black community. They have to get the black vote. No question. They have to get the black. I mean, Paul Vallas and Ken Griffey, man, they're handing out checks to black folks to work with.
Man, I haven't gotten one yet, man.
Man, they're handing out checks to
Really?
black folks. Well, they probably, they won't pay you enough, but they're able to peel off some black folks,
Man,
giving
I'll
them
take it. I'll take it.
$10,000, $15,000.
Hey, I'll take 10, 15,000, man.
Well, call them up.
Depends on what I'm going to do.
Call them up.
Oh, man, they might
They'll pay you,
I've been canceled in Chicago, so I don't.
They'll call.
I mean,
The Republicans canceled you.
No, the Democrats canceled.
Well, he's a
It's like
Republican.
your boy, man, huh?
He's
Vallas is a lifelong
with your
Democrat.
friend Dan
Haven't you
Proft.
seen the
He's
commercials?
with your friend Dan
Haven't you
Proft.
seen the commercials? He is a lifelong Republican. I mean,
Not according
Democrat.
to the policies that he instituted.
Well,
Those are not
that's
Democratic
subjective.
policies.
That's
No,
subjective,
that's-
man. He is a
Republicans believe
a life.
Republicans believe
Democrat.
in cut. They think you can cut your way to prosperity. I don't know anything that I have been able to prosper by cutting. Wherever I prospered, I invested.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah,
I have to invest in a home.
One of the
I have
problems
to
is
invest in a home, and then I have to put money into that home, then put it on the market to get a return.
One of the problems is that with investing at this point is we're broke.
No, we're not.
We don't have money. We got
No,
a pension issue. We got to raise taxes in order to find some money. We
Man,
can't
there's
just
so much money.
go get
There's
the
so much
money.
money flowing through that they can't find the ways to misappropriate it, as Don would say. All right, listen, we've had a great conversation between my good friend Charles Thomas and Mark Wallace here on this week's edition of the People Show. We're going to still try to get these candidates in here. I really would like to get them both in here at the same time so that we could have a good down home conversation.
Down home.
Because those debates, to me, that's this setting. This is real people-to-people conversation. I hope that we can do that. I'm going to try to get both of them to agree to come in here and let's have a real conversation. In fact, the studio says that we can do it at a special hour, so we don't have to do it.
Do it whenever they're ready.
We can do it whenever they can do it, and the studio said that they will make the facilities available for us to do it. Is that right, Earl? All right. Well, so that's going to do it for Charles and I this week. You all have a fantastic week. I got to head out to Florida tomorrow. I'll be back on Wednesday.
Yeah, man. Well, safe travels, and I got to get home, man.
All right. That's going to do it for us this week. Thank you all for tuning in to this week's edition of The People Show. Get out there and work.